Beep, 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 beep. Right then, so let's get cracking for today. There was a I like to watch documentaries, especially stuff about real life and people, because it's interesting. So last week I watched something called Obesity, How Prejudice is the NHS. And it was a programme about prejudice against overweight and obese people, particularly about gastric bypass surgery. So I put a post on Facebook about this because it was quite an interesting program. And basically, the premise of the program was that the NHS are prejudicing people who are obese when they can just give them a gastric bypass, and that's going to basically alleviate the problems that we have in the with the spending, on diabetes type 2. So if all these people get gastric bypasses, then that's going to lighten the load on the NHS in terms of diabetes type 2. So it's quite an interesting programme. If you've got problems with your weight, it might still be available on BBC iPlayer. It's called Obesity, How Prejudice the NHS. If you've got problems with your weight, it's quite an interesting watch, particularly around support and guidance for really overweight people. Now, there was a few things that stuck out for me on the programme. Firstly, we shouldn't be prejudicing anybody. We live in a country where we're fortunate enough to have healthcare, so we shouldn't be prejudicing anyone, in my opinion. But the problem here is that it was acting like it wasn't their fault that they were obese. And it was also acting like that it was kind of, if you watched it and got the wrong end of the stick, you could make the assumption that you're not responsible for it either. So the problem is, by encouraging people to bypass, the problem, it's almost like bypassing an exam that you can't pass. You just say, well, can I bypass it and pass? Because there are people out there who follow systems and lose weight, and the people who don't. And how do you make the difference? So for me, what I want to do is see a consistent track record of somebody actually demonstrating that they've tried everything to improve their situation. One woman on the programme had to go private and spent 11 grand on a gastric band privately, and she lost 12.5 stone. So she halved the body weight. She was 25 stone and she halved the body weight. So basically, she saved her life. She saved her life, in my opinion. She saved her life. So would you spend or find 11 grand to save your life? I think you probably would. So the premise, the problem, I think, with any of this stuff is that because overweight and obese is becoming the norm, and I've been overweight and obese, so I can talk about this, because it's becoming the norm, it's also becoming the norm that it's like a disease that these people, they don't have to take responsibility for. And there was a couple of examples on the programme of people that probably, looking at them, could clearly afford help, like someone like myself or whatever, but clearly were not using that or weren't utilising it, because it's clear that some people want the luxuries in life, the car, the stuff, the possessions, all that, but they don't want to invest in themselves, yet they want somebody else to take the burden for them. The thing is, if you're overweight or obese, we don't need to get into fault, but it's your responsibility to deal with it. It's your responsibility to deal with it. Just by saying, I've tried everything, well, you can't have done, because some of us who've tried some things and it's worked for us. And what are we looking for here? Are we looking for sympathy, or are we looking for strategies? Now, granted, if somebody's really that bad, then fine, we've got the facilities in place. But sending out a message that this isn't your fault, it's a disease, we're going to bypass it for you, is a really big problem for me, because some people would watch that and not get help and not change because they think, well, actually, if I keep going, it doesn't matter because I'm going to get help later on down the line. And we have to be careful about the messages we give out, because remember, obesity is a modern problem. It's a modern societal problem. It wasn't a problem 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 3 years ago, at the level that it is now. So there's a problem here. But we can't take responsibility off the individuals, because there are people out there doing this. There are people out there who can help. There are people out there who can support people. But if somebody's spending money on cars, clothes, all this sort of thing, and the luxuries in life, but they don't want to invest in themselves, well, how does that work? How does that play out? Do you know what I mean? So I guess from my point of view, the point I'm trying to make is that we have to give people responsibility, and we have to make sure that they've tried absolutely everything in their power to be able to fix this problem. And if they have tried absolutely everything in their power to fix this problem, then yes, let's give people some help. But taking the responsibility off people is not the way forward. Telling people that they're being picked on because they're fat is not the way forward, because fat shaming is wrong, as I've talked about before. We shouldn't be calling people names. We shouldn't be making people feel bad because they're overweight. But a medical professional should be able to tell somebody, you've got to sort this out. You have to sort this out. And if, because at some level, if you're overweight or obese, you've done it to yourself. They reckon that, 90% of obesity is caused by neglect or lifestyle choices, and probably about 10% is caused by something external or some condition. But 90% of it, they reckon, I probably think it's more than that, is caused by lifestyle choices. So if somebody's not prepared to make the right lifestyle choices and continues down that path, why should they have the automatic right to bypass the stuff that other people has to go through? Yeah, because and that's my point. My problem isn't about being prejudiced. It's not about fat shaming. It's none of that. It's about helping people to take responsibility. And that's the problem with the world today. It glorifies this victim chic about, you don't, oh, it's all right. Oh, excuse me, somebody's phoned me there. It's like, you don't have to take responsibility because we'll bypass it for you. We'll do this thing, we'll bypass it for you. And the woman was like, yeah, well, I had to pay 11 grand for this bypass. Well, she saved her life. And you would do, wouldn't you? You would pay that much money to save your life. So the question, I suppose, will always be this. We have to encourage people to take responsibility for what they're doing, rather than trying to help them bypass or cheat the system, and then using the excuse that they're obese to then so we feel sorry for them. Because we all have to pay for this stuff. We all have to shoulder the burden of obesity. And, all we can do is make our individual lifestyle choices better, but feeling sorry for somebody that's done it to themselves and continually done it to themselves and not got help and not got support is not helping them or anybody else. So when we see things like this, like programs that are telling us we're prejudiced or that obesity is a disease, all we're doing is helping to take the responsibility off a lot of people. And as we know in modern society, a lot of people will just look for anything they can, any way to help them take responsibility away from them, to blame. I mentioned the election before. Politics is a classic one for people just to say, oh, it's not my fault, it's their fault. It's not me, it's them. It's not them, it's you. And what we've got to try and do is, yes, more can be done to support people who are overweight and obese and have problems. Yes, more can be done. But the answer isn't to take the responsibility off people. When I coach people, my goal is not to take the responsibility off people. It's to give people tools and support so they can hopefully make some better choices, because people are walking around all day making choices, and no matter how good a coach you are, you can't be with them 100% of the time. So there should be more to be done to help people make better choices, to make better decisions, to get better results. But taking the responsibility off people, particularly in the area of, obesity or this type of thing, is very, very dangerous. Because if somebody says to me, I've tried everything, yeah, that's not good enough. We need to see a track record of them actually trying everything. What have they tried? How long have they tried it for? Because you wouldn't expect, it's like somebody going to the job centre and saying, I've done everything I can to get a job and I haven't got one, can I claim benefits? People say, no, you need to show us evidence of the job interviews you've been to. So we need to encourage people to take responsibility and encourage them to make changes and encourage them to get help, rather than just go, oh, forget that, I'll just get a bypass. Because if you're a parent and your kids came home and went, I've tried to pass this exam and I keep failing, can I bypass it? You wouldn't go, yeah, go on then. You can get a free pass. So it's very important, the message, not about sympathy. It's very important about the message that we give out, that we don't take responsibility off the individuals. And if people are paying out good money to change and save their life, then great. Because people want nice cars and nice stuff, but if they don't want to invest in themselves, it doesn't work like that. So at some point, someone's got to give. So the whole point is, What should be being done is helping people take responsibility for their actions and make better choices through coaching and support systems, not taking the responsibility off them and shouldering the burden for everybody else. That's the key. And if anything I've said today triggers you, then you might have a problem as well. Because it was interesting, I had a comment on the post, and if something triggers you, it's obviously a problem, yeah? So if something triggers you, that's where you need to grow. If something offends you, that's where you need to grow, yeah? But coaching people through obesity and overweight problems is about giving them responsibility for their actions and helping them to make better choices. It's not about placing the blame elsewhere. And that's my £2 on it. Have a good day.